Art of the Hitcher. Those who stop never reach their destination. He had only driven for 5 minutes before realizing he felt uncomfortable continuing in the car that had hit the kangaroo. It just didn't feel right, so he returned to the original car he had been driving. Once he was back in his familiar vehicle, he thought he would stick with it and see how long it would last. There was something oddly appealing about testing how far a car could take him before running out of petrol. It reminded him of the song Running on Empty. He loved that song. It was almost like a game, trying to see how far he could go before the inevitable stop. With that thought in mind, he cruised down the highway without a care in the world. There was something strangely satisfying about the sensation of the car sputtering and eventually halting to a stop. Each car had its personality. Some could go further on empty than others. It was as if each vehicle had a unique limit, a boundary that would eventually be reached. He kept driving, pushing the car until it could go no more. When it finally sputtered to a complete stop, he got out, stretched his legs, and walked for a while, casually giving a thumbs up to passing cars. Thumbs up and drive, he thought, fully aware that it would only be a matter of time before he was back on the road. What surprised him most, however, was how many women had stopped to assist a stranger. Age, looks, race, it didn't matter. It seemed like everyone was willing to lend a hand in this strange, shared pursuit of getting further down the highway. So far, 3 women had offered help on this stretch alone, each succumbing to his artistry. Each stop, each encounter, was a reminder that sometimes the journey was just as important as the destination. The last time the car ran out of petrol at a strange time, just before reaching a service station. Feeling the pangs of hunger, Harvey decided to stop and take advantage of the opportunity. He walked to the station, gathered some supplies, and sat to eat in the small, brightly lit dining area. The TV was on in the background, and the news caught his attention. It was a story about a suspect being apprehended in connection to a recent case, but oddly enough, the suspect had been released not long after. Harvey found the whole situation rather curious, and although the story seemed somewhat intriguing, he didn't give it much more thought. As he finished his meal, a thought crossed his mind. Maybe it was time for a change of appearance, especially with the heat building up as he continued his journey. He considered buying a cap and some sunglasses to disguise himself, perhaps even shedding his jacket to make himself more comfortable in the warmer weather. He chuckled at the idea, thinking it was a small enough adjustment that might make him blend in, if only for the sake of anonymity. He stood up to head to the counter and decided to treat himself to a quick shower. The long stretches of road were starting to take their toll, and the thought of a refreshing rinse sounded perfect. After grabbing a few items, he browsed the shop. His eyes fell upon a small beaded bracelet, delicate and intricate, with tiny teardrop-shaped beads strung together. The bracelet was captivating as if it were calling to him. Unknowingly, he picked it up and added it to his pile of items. It seemed like a small indulgence, but it felt right. With his purchases in hand, Harvey hit the highway, feeling oddly content with the little detour and the things he'd bought. Whether it was the bracelet, the food, or the brief pause in his journey, something about the moment had left him feeling strangely calm, almost as if he were preparing for something more ahead. There was a sense of quiet anticipation in the air, an unspoken understanding that the road held more in store for him, even if he couldn't quite grasp what it was yet. He had walked for miles down the highway when, at last, a car pulled over beside him. Harvey, ever hopeful that this could be the opportunity he'd been waiting for, quickly hopped into the passenger seat. But as soon as he settled in, he noticed something that stopped him in his tracks: a dog in the back seat. It wasn't just any dog. This one immediately reminded him of his dog, Jet. The memories flooded back, of Jet's boundless energy, the companionship they had shared, and the comfort of having a loyal friend always by his side. For a moment, Harvey hesitated. He had been so fixated on his journey, on the task at hand, but now, staring at the dog, something shifted inside him. The man driving must have noticed the change because he casually started talking about his dog, how much he loved him, and how he was his best friend. Before he knew it, Harvey found himself pouring his heart out to the man. He shared how he once had a dog called Jet that had been more than just a pet to him. He had been his constant companion and protector. He told the driver how, in a cruel twist of fate, his life had been stolen from him when Jet had tragically died. It had been a loss Harvey still hadn't fully recovered from. The man listened, nodding understandingly, and the conversation shifted to dogs in general. They talked about dog training, the rising costs of pet food, and the deep, unconditional bond between a person and their dog. Clearly, the driver's life revolved around his dog, and Harvey couldn't help but relate. There was a comfort in this shared understanding of companionship, of how a dog could be a friend and family. The longer they drove, the more the connection between Harvey and the man grew, with each story and each laugh they shared. But as they continued their journey, Harvey realized something else. He couldn't harm this man. Not when there was a dog in the backseat. The thought of leaving an innocent creature behind, abandoned without its owner, felt wrong. It was clear to Harvey that this man's life was intertwined with his dog, just as his own had once been with Jet. When they finally reached the next town, Harvey felt grateful for the unexpected encounter. As the car slowed to a stop, Harvey turned to the man, thanked him for the ride, and got out. He couldn't bring himself to harm the man, not with the dog there, and certainly not after their conversations. With a wave and a sincere smile, Harvey departed. Subscribe and share to others, so you don't miss an episode.